Okay, wow, that's impressive. We are live on LinkedIn. We are live on. Are we live on YouTube, please? Yes, we are live. Wow, that's marvelous. For one
That's
time,
good.
it's working well.
Okay.
Okay. So first of all, hello to everyone watching this current interview with Motoko HUNT and myself. So my name is Ronan Chardonneau. I'm passionate about, let's say, search marketing and digital marketing in general. And I got the idea of interviewing people from all over the world in order to understand and know a little bit more about how to perform, let's say, local search marketing by interviewing people who are experts in their field, explaining us how to target their specific, let's say, country. So today I have the chance to be with Motoko HUNT, and the idea is to talk about how to perform search marketing in Japan. We are together for the next 30 minutes, and it is currently streamed on LinkedIn and YouTube. I would like, of course, to thank you, Motoko, for being with us today. And I will start with the first question, Motoko. Could you please introduce yourself and explain us how did you came to the search marketing field?
Sure. Thank you very much for having me here today. I started all the search related or internet related work back in the mid 90s, and I created my company in 1998. So from the beginning of the company, I specialized in introducing that non-Japanese business to tap into Japanese market through the internet or website. So offering the optimization, content creations, and advertising, marketing services to, again, non-Japanese, US or European companies.
Okay. So last time I had the chance to interview you. Unfortunately, the recording didn't went as I expected, so the video has been lost. So last time I structured my interview with a set of lots of questions. This time I'm gonna do it differently in order, of course, for you to not have to answer to the same question. And I'm gonna show you, in fact, some website that I worked on. So I was, let's say, working as a French mind, and I was saying, okay, we have good translators out there, online translators such as DeepL, such as Google Translate, and what about purchasing my own Japanese TLD, and what about launching my own website? And this is what I ended up with. So I'm going to share you my screen right now. Could you please confirm me that you are seeing my screen properly?
Yes,
Okay.
I can.
So in fact, I created two websites. One is with a .gp TLD. The other one is with a subdomain, just for cost reason. So this is how I set it up. So I have to say that for a subdomain, of course, I didn't have any high purchase to make, but dealing with the .gp domain name, I had to use a service from France named Netim, and I just would like to know if, for example, this domain name for my activity is like the most appropriate, or I heard about .co.jp domain name. Could you please tell us a bit about what are the choices that we need to make with domain names if we want to target the Japanese market?
Yeah, sure. So that, like you mentioned, for Japan domain, that JP domain, we have, there's two choices, right? One is that JP, like you have here. The other one for business is .co.jp, but which is more trusted, because in order for company to obtain .co.jp domain, you have to have the physical address, business address in Japan, registered business address in Japan. So it means that while that JP can be obtained by anyone, .co.jp has to be someone actually doing business in Japan. So people in Japan tend to trust the .co.jp domain better, but .jp is also the CCTLD for Japan, and it's a good practice to have that domain if you are, serious about targeting Japan. But you don't have to have the .jp. You could have the JP folder or subdomain on, added to your existing website, like you have on here. And then especially you have it here as a subdomain, but if you have that as a folder, you can benefit from your existing site's link value passed on to that Japanese folder as well. And also even the subdomain that people easily, if they happen to land on other language sites, it's easier for them to find that JP domain subdomains. So there's pros and cons in both ways, but either way, I will definitely encourage people to put the language or country market selection links in the top, usually on the top right corner. That's what people expect to see. So that way, you have the link from the main site, and also people can find your Japanese website as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Regarding everything which deal with metadata, for example, here, like the title, I mean, when we read books, it has been said that Japanese characters are 2 bytes long, I mean, considered as 2 bytes long, whereas in more Latin one, it's 1. Is it like, because for example, in Europe, for example, we tend to say that title should not exceed 65 characters. Is it like something which is applied in the same strict way in Japan? Like, okay, when you are sending, for example, a bot such as Screaming Frog or any other bots like this, you carefully look at the title length in order to ensure that it does not go beyond 35 characters or something like this. I don't know what is the maximum supported number of characters for the Japanese language.
Yeah, so that there is no specific limitation on a character. The Google's search results changes as far as how many character might fit all the time. 1 or 2 character lengths always changes. So I will make sure that what people might be searching for will be, you place the words at the beginning of the title tag. In general, the rule of thumb is the Japanese character is a double byte, so each character takes up twice as much of space. So if you are going by 60 character limit for your the French or English websites, then 30 or less will be the number for the Japanese characters going by your character limit. Looking at this, I will probably translate the word analytics into Japanese as well. That way, the analytic trainer and consultant, if people search for that, they will, pick it up. This site will be picked up and included in the search results. Matomo is definitely the brand name, so you can leave it as is. But the word analytics, you probably want to translate that too.
And that's really something from the outside. I mean, I will not have even think about it. How do you know, for example, when a word is going to be has to be translated, and when it shouldn't be? I'm going to give you just one specific use case, but I know, for example, in the Arabic language, for example, here, analytics has no, not 100% sure, but let's imagine that it has no equivalent in Arabic. They will keep the English name for it. When do you know that a word shouldn't be translated and when a word should be translated? Is it just like the rule of thumb is like there is a trademark, so that shouldn't be translated, or are there any ways that, for example, some English word shouldn't be translated in all cases? I know, for example, in Spanish they translate everything, but in French they accept, for example, some English words at some points.
Yeah. So I think for the Japanese website, the rule, the best practice is translate all the words into Japanese if it's possible, right? And what needs to be remained in the alphabet is really up to the business. It's a business decision. If you want to make sure that the people in Japan will be searching for your brand name in English or the alphabet or product numbers, product name, then it should stay in the alphabet version. But if you look at your analytics tools in search console tools and then find that Japanese people, even though you are using, let's say, word analytics in English here, but people are searching for the word analytics in Japanese word, or even your name, your first name, last name, people might not be able to type in correctly, and they prefer, if they know how it pronounced, they might spell it out in a Japanese character that's similar to how it sounds. Same with the company name Matomo, the brand name. They might use that, write that down in Japanese characters. In that case, if you start finding that people are searching in both cases, in alphabet and the Japanese characters, many of the businesses targeting Japan, they put the Japanese version after the English, or alphabet inside the parentheses, so that the people can find you in either way, the alphabet or version or the Japanese character version.
Okay. Wow. One curiosity question: are there any metadata that we need to think about when we are targeting Japan specifically? I mean, here I added, for example, the HTML language code,
JA.
but are there any additional one that we have to think about specifically for Japan?
No, language JA is correct, and excuse me, the Japanese language is spoken only by Japanese people mainly, right? So in Japan, so I don't think you need to worry about adding JP to that. But if you are, again, start looking at your analytics tools and see that Japanese people are landing on your English sites or French sites instead of Japanese sites, then you need to think about introducing or implementing the hreflang tag. In that case, if you have only like English and Japanese or English, French, and Japanese, 3 languages, then it's easy to put just those 3 lines on hreflang on the header, on the page level. But if you have, like here, many languages, then I usually prefer to put them on XML sitemap instead of on the page, each page, because then you don't have to worry about, the file size, page file size gets so big because of those additional tags, hreflang tags. So that will be something that you might want to think about in the near future. Take all those hreflang out from the page and put on the XML sitemap. And then when you have on the XML sitemap, it's much easier to update because it's external files and manage. Where in many CMS limits how easily or how difficult you can update these embedded codes on each page. So that's something to think about. But if your page still load quickly in Japan, that's I guess you don't need to worry about it at this point. That's another thing many sites needs to understand or think about is that page load speed. A lot of time it does really well in your home base country where the website is hosted, 2-3 seconds at most, and you think it's okay. But same page, same Japanese page, you can download in 2-3 seconds in the US or in somewhere in Europe. Could take 15 seconds or even longer in Japan or in other market outside. So that might be something else that you should really pay attention to, because that definitely impact on the indexability of the page. If the page times out and then Google cannot index the content, then you're not gonna rank well. It's also not good user experience. So if even if you rank number one, if the person click the link and then page doesn't download quickly, that person gonna likely bounce back to the search results, and then you're gonna lose the business opportunity with that person. So definitely consider take close attention to that page speed outside of your home base country.
So will you say that first of all we need to purchase a VPN service in order to, let's say, get an IP address in Tokyo and see what's going wrong in terms of, are we doing well in terms of loading time?
Yeah, the VPN can be misleading as well, as long as you are in outside of Japan. If you have a partner in Japan, have them check it for you. If not, sometimes some people find someone in Japan, friends of friends of friends, or on the Twitter friends or someone in the market, not just Japan but China and Korea and other parts of Asian market, to go to the site and check the speed and see how quickly or how slowly that page downloads. I experienced a couple of times when I was in Australia. A page, some of my clients' page were downloading really slowly. And so it's really depending on the market. Korea, usually they have the really good high-speed connection, so it's relatively quickly, but depending on the country, not just Japan, but anywhere you're targeting, I think you should also always pay attention to the local audience experience.
Okay. Thanks for all those information. Just one curiosity question. Are you recommending your client, for example, to go for SSL certificate, which is issued by a Japanese company? In Europe, for example, no one is bothering much about SSL. They all go for Let's Encrypt because it's free. But I just would like to know if you have the feeling that having a SSL certificate issued by a Japanese authority may have more power than Let's Encrypt one.
I think the certification wise, there is no much difference as long as that you are using that trusted the ones from the trusted source for the US or Europe. That works really fine for Japan too. It's not they don't have that different, or they don't say that it has to be issued by Japanese authority or anything like that for HTTPS certificate.
Okay.
Yeah, so you don't need to worry about that part.
I have an extra question, which is more dealing with the URL. So here, for example, I have like basic URL, and if we look at the top, the bottom left corner of my screen, I took the choice of translating the anchor link here in Japanese. I'm not going to say Japanese language, but let's say, I mean, it's the Latin translation of Japanese character. Is it a good practice to do so, or should we always go for English characters when it comes to URL?
So I think you use the machine translation for this,
Probably.
right? Yeah, the translation isn't good.
Okay.
But at least it's in Japanese language. So unfortunately, not many Japanese people are fluent in English. And if the site is still in English, they probably those people, unless you're the only person can offer the service and the information, and then no competitors offering in Japanese, information or services in Japanese languages, that will be the only case they will stay. But as long as there's other choices that people can go to get the similar services and information, they probably keep searching for that information or services in Japanese elsewhere, right?
Mm.
So it's good that content is in Japanese, but you probably want to have someone that's native to Japanese language to edit and then polish up the translation. Similar to the meta description you were showing earlier, that can be updated too. That I will definitely change that wording, change that little bit of messaging. Yeah, and especially since if that shows up in the search results and among the the sites with among the websites that are native to Japanese, Japanese companies, people can immediately see you are not Japan, you are not in Japan, you are not Japanese, because of that translation. So that might impact, probably impact on the click-through rate, even if you rank really well for that, whatever the target keyword. So polishing up is really important if you are really serious about going after and then be successful in Japanese market.
In terms of translation, so this translation has been, I think it has been done on DeepL. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty I pretty like DeepL, so I guess I have done it from DeepL. Could you tell me about how far it is from a good translation? I mean, is it like this meta description? I don't know if I can zoom on it. Yes, is this meta description like a nonsense at all, or is it more like, okay, but this is not the right word that we use in Japan? So I definitely know that you are not from Japan. I mean, how far are those translators, online translation services, far from the reality?
Yeah. So when you hire the translation company, for example, they translate your English or French description into Japanese, right? So in that sense, the translation is not wrong. Translation work itself is correct, but the messaging, the way that you write the ad copy or description, that's really connecting with the audience in the US or France or UK or Germany, might not be the right messaging, might not be the right way to present yourself to a Japanese audience. Japanese is Japan is the country has so many different level of the politeness, how are you wording, depending on who you're speaking to. And I think that it's important to do the business with Japan, especially the professional businesses, to make sure that those wording is not offensive or not misleading, or you are, connecting with Japanese, customer base with the right tone of the voice. So regular translators don't do that because it's not part of their work. They just translating. That's their work. There is the word such transcreation. So it's translating your messaging in a way that the Japanese audience will agree on or listen to, or that react on. So you probably need to do that if you are, again, serious and really want to invest in the Japanese market. Otherwise, your website is in Japanese, and which is the first step, and it's good that you invested on that, but probably doesn't do as well as it should or it could. So that's the part that the many websites struggle, because they think that they hired translation company and translated the websites, and then now you have the Japanese site, but many of the messaging is not the right messaging, especially in a certain industry, business industry you are in. Those tone of the voices are more important than some casual, friendly websites. So, so that's something to think about. Yeah.
Okay. I promise you that it's not going to be more than 30 minutes. It's currently 31. So I'm just showing the website here for my my two audience. I'm just going to ask you one last question. So as one can see here, I have I have two websites. It's regular 30, 100 words or 500 words, I don't remember. Here are all the performances that I gathered. So this is the subdomain. As you can see, it's close to nothing. And in this is a total failure, but probably because subdomain is taking more time. This one is the JPay domain name over the last 90 days, I guess, with ranking not really on the keyword that I expected in Japanese at all, but as we can see, those are legit Japanese user. I just would like that you could please explain to our audience, according to you, why the performances of my website over here, so this one, the one who gets at least the 2 clicks, why, according to you, those performances are poor? Is it because it lacks a backlink? Is it because really this content creation part or transcreation, as you mentioned, is really missing? Is it a bit of everything? Is it due to, oh, here I can see, no, but is it because of the analytics part that you mentioned to me, which needed to be translated? Is it because it's still web analytics? So is it because in Japan the web analytics is a competitive keywords market? Could you please explain to our audience why they will fail with a website such as mine to target Japan, and why they won't get, let's say, as many clicks or impressions as they are in their local market, in their own local market?
Yeah, so I think it's all of the above, the questions you just asked. The content translation is poor, and the words are not, important words like analytics still in the alphabet. So in that sense, even though it looks like you have the localized website, but probably not completely. So you need to look at the words that are attractive or popular amongst the Japanese audience. What words they are looking for. Using to search the information that or the type of service that your website is offering, and focus on that. And like you said, web analytics is really, really competitive. The information or topics in Japan. There are many, many websites in Japan with high authorities and experience and histories already are local companies' websites, and you are going against that. So, and because those local websites been there for a while. They have a lot of the backlinks from Japanese websites. Your websites probably lacking any inbound links from Japanese websites, especially. That's something that you really are behind as far as backlinks goes. It doesn't matter if you have the .jp, or it doesn't matter if you have the subdomain. Those histories, backlinks, and content optimization and translation or localization, the quality of that is probably not as good compared to those websites run by the Japanese companies. Also, web analytics really competitive business area for worldwide, not just in Japan, and in many non-Japanese companies been targeting Japanese market for years. So when you just localize the websites into Japanese, and you probably have a lot to catch up.
Okay.
Yeah, and then having is this the same content on the .jp and then
No,
subdomain?
those are
Okay,
they are not like,
different.
they are
Yeah,
a little bit
that's
different.
right. Yeah, so that's another reason why that there is a difference in the traffic right now. But at some point, I'm probably smart to combine a service, unless there is a reason for that, to have the separate websites, separate domain, combine that. In that way, you have more content in one place for the Japanese audience to once they get to the website, they can find, click through the links and find all of your services too. But yeah, I think that analytics or the search console shows that your site now getting a traffic by non-Japanese, only the branded terms, the company name or your name. I think that's what I expected to see, based on the history, of the lifespan of your website and content optimization at this point.
Okay. Just in order to close the interview, I just would like to remind to our audience the name of your website if they want to contact you. So it's it's agpr.com, right?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Here it is. So if our audience has any questions to ask you dealing with how to perform search marketing in Japan, they can go on igpr.com and get in contact with you directly. Do you have anything to add in order to close our interview, Motoko?
Well, thank you very much for having me today. And it might, as we went through today, it might sound difficult or really challenging to target Japan, but with right project plan, right resources, it is possible. And in many non-Japanese companies are being successful targeting Japanese market. So I hope today's interview doesn't discourage you, but rather encourage you to consider Japanese market. It is a exciting market. Many money has been dropped on the internet in Japan for not just Japanese companies' websites, but external, the foreign companies' websites. So I really encourage you to consider Japanese market. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, Motoko, and thank you very much to our audience.
Thank you.
Thank you.